So I think it's important to point out that we had a pretty good idea of what we were going to talk about that we've been thinking about for quite some time. And then we had.
And we had actually recorded it last week
Right.
prior to our exhibition Voices that occurred this past weekend.
And we realized that it may be a little bit more useful to hear a story about an actual exhibition that just happened like 20 hours ago. We just closed about 20 hours ago. So we hope that that's a good idea. So we're going to talk about Voices.
So, as a place to start, though, we want to make sure that everybody in the room is aware that our work as an organization is always intentional. It is meant to increase specifically the awareness, the understanding, and belonging for the disabled community. And that our productions, in particular for Project One by Arts Prize, which include the Disability Drag Show and the Voices exhibition, created opportunities for the public to challenge their own internal and often subconscious biases toward the disabled community.
Both those events, and really any event that we do, really tries to make sure that the disabled voice, and obviously because this one is called Voices, right? It's literally the voice, but we always try to get the voice of the disabled public present in any of the things that we do, and I think that that's something we've had to learn over the last 5 years because we didn't always do that in the way that I think we do now.
Right, right. And that happens through the partners that we work with. That happens through the volunteers. That happens through the artists and really listening to the people who are involved in the project. And in some ways, that's forced us to let go.
Yeah, and that wasn't easy. I mean, I really don't think it was. I mean, I think that part of the reason we started DisArt is because we had this idea, right? And then we had this vision of what could happen. But realized very quickly that our vision had to be let go, and we had to sort of let the community that we were working with and for take a bigger role.
Yeah, and for us to realize that what we do in Grand Rapids may not work the same in another city or state. And so making sure that if we are in other places that we're going to be asking for those voices of the community members, and in particular the disabled community members, to participate and help us form whatever project it is that we're working on at the time.
Yeah, and it just as a quick setup. So just to make sure that you folks understand what Voices is about, we interviewed 25 people from Michigan, all of those who had disabilities, and had hour-long conversations with them about them, who they are. Disability could be part of that story that they told, but it didn't have to be. And then we talked to them in particular about times of in their lives when they felt alienated, and then times in the sort of mirror of that is when they feel like they belong, where they were in the right place. And then those voices, literally voices, became the centerpiece of this exhibition.
So we were very intentional to only capture the audio of the people that we were interviewing. And because we understand, and people who live with disabilities understand, that so much of our assumptions and fears and discrimination that takes place in the disabled community is based on first impressions, visual impressions.
Yeah, that first witnessing of a wheelchair or a walker or some sort of device, right? Those things carry a lot of aesthetic weight. And so we made this very conscious decision to not have that part of this exhibition and instead work with more abstract images and work with some artists who could not interpret the voices, but interact with those voices that we had gathered and begin to help people, give people avenues into those voices, right?
One other aspect of the exhibition included an invitation to the public. Anyone visiting the site was invited to be interviewed and to add their own voice and to give their impressions about the exhibition as a whole, to talk about their own experiences of alienation or of experiences of belonging. And so we're going to share just part of an interview that goes into a bit about the impressions of the exhibition.
Well, what I would like to talk about is my reaction to this is an incredible and much needed, it's because it strikes you from more than just the reading of or watching of something. It strikes you from the angles of, number one, your reaction to the art coupled with the people speaking and the association of how you've accommodated people with disabilities here and how really simple it is to do that. And that's impressive for people to see it in its simplicity so that there's an awareness of being able to handle it more easily.
Part of what we have learned that we have to start with is this idea of disability as a cultural identity. And historically, the voices of disabled people have been silenced by social and political institutions of power, which ironically were designed to assist them. Right? So if you think about institutionalized medicine or underfunded educational practices or even other social services, they rarely leave space to amplify the voices of those they work for. So the results of that are deeply felt by us in the disabled community. And I think many of us have internalized these conditions and consequently feel like there's no place for our stories. And so, again, that cultural rendering of disability is a really important place that we start.
We like to start in our thinking where we want to finish.
Right.
So we start by thinking, who do we want to be part of this?
Yeah.
Who do we want as visitors or in the audience? And what do we need to do to make sure that if they choose to show up, that they don't have to think about much once they get there?
It's important to point out what happens when you overdo it. When the selling point of your exhibition is that it's accessible, right? Then oftentimes the art or the message or the artifacts that you're putting out there get lost in a message of sort of an over-eagerness. And I think we learned that the hard way. We've been over-eager at times to point out all that stuff. And I think what we've learned, especially with voices, is that you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and we encourage all of you who are listening to give yourself grace throughout this process. And when we're trying to think about increasing the participation of the disabled community, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
As with trying to bring any minority community to your gallery spaces. And so we like to just try new things. Every time we do something, we're trying something new. And then as we try it, that becomes our new normal.
Yeah. You mentioned a growth mindset the other day. And I think that's a really important way to do it. And that's the way that we've done it.
And so while we have specific art that speaks to the disabled experience, we're not expecting that all of your museums will have that. But yet there is something that we hope that we've offered today that will allow you to maybe take on a different perspective or approach that you hadn't in the past.